So, very tov, everyone. So, Parashat Mishpatim this week, the first pasuk of our parasha, there's a tremendous amount which the Mepharshim learn, which Chazal learn from this first pasuk. Ele HaMishpatim, asher tasim lifneihem. That's it, that's the pasuk. So we'll get back in a moment to Ele Mishpatim, but first I want to focus on those last three words, asher tasim lifneihem. What does that mean? These are the Mishpatim, these are the laws which you will place before them. Very unusual language. Throughout the Torah, Siftei Chachamim points out here, Kadosh Baruch Hu commands Moshe, says, Vaydaber Hashem Moshe Laimor. What is this? Asher tasim lifneihem, you will place before them. Obviously, everything is placed before them. You'll teach them everything. So Rashi points out, Rashi says the following. He says, Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu LaMoshe, Lo ta'aleh al da'atcha lomar, Eshne lהם הפרק והלכה ב' או ג' פעמים, עד שתהא סתורה בפיהם כמשנתה, and that's it. Meaning, don't say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, don't say to yourself, okay, we're going to learn it, we're going to regurgitate it 2 or 3 times till they just know what it is, they know what you've said, and that's it, we'll end there. No, there's got to be more than that. What does it mean, tasim lifneihem? He says, Ad shetehei stura b'fihem kemishnata. It needs to be well understood. It needs to be there in their mouths. Don't say it's just enough that they'll just remember it. Don't say they'll just know. I don't have to explain it. I don't have to tell them why it is, what's behind it, what's the depth behind it. No, you've got to explain it. You've got to place it before them in a way that's going to be understood, in a way that's going to be appealing, in a way that's going to be palatable. And he says, Lakach ne'amar asher tasim lifneihem, place it before them. How should you place it before them? How should you teach all these laws? Keshulchan ha'aruch u'muchan le'echol lifnei ha'adam. Like Shulchan Aruch, right? We all know the name of the Sefer, Shulchan Aruch, but that's where it comes from. He says it should be like a table that's placed before you, lots of food, lots of meals, that's there, that's ready before a person. Person walks into a room where you have a nice meal before you, you have a Shulchan Aruch, you have a set table, you have all the food, you have the meat, you have the fish, you have whatever it is, and a person just wants to go, they want to taste it, they want to take as much food as they can. So too, that's the mission, that's the memo over here. When you're teaching the Torah, when you're passing down the Mishpatim, do it in such a way, as much as we can. Teach it in a way that it's like a Shulchan Aruch. Tasim lifneihem, place it before them in a way that people are going to want to grab it. People that want to go, obviously people have to be hungry, people have to be thirsty. It it's not always easy, but that's the way, that's the message, says Rashi, that is behind these extra words. Asher tasim lifneihem. Teach it them, explain it to them, show them the beauty, show them the depth, show them the majesty in every one of these mishpatim, and people will jump on it. People will want to grab onto the Torah, will want to learn it, will want to pass it on, will want to keep it. That's one explanation of Asher tasim lifneihem. Rabbeinu B'chaye over here says something else very interesting. He says Asher tasim lifneihem, the word tasim. So it comes from the root of sam, which means to put, as we've explained. But the word, that's sam with the shin, with the sin. With the samech, the word sam also means it's like a drug, like a medicine, like an elixir. So Chazal tell us that what does it mean regarding Torah? It says zacha naseh lo sam chayim, lo zacha naseh lo sam mavet. That the Torah itself can be, if one merits and it's done and it's performed and it's taught over in the proper way and it's used in the proper way, it is the sam chayim. It is the elixir of life. If the Torah is misused, if it is abused, if it is misinterpreted, if it's used not in the correct way, then it becomes a sam mavet. So especially, not just for anybody, but especially here, says Rabbeinu B'chaye, we're talking to the judges, talking to the dayanim, these are the mishpatim. When you have to use the mishpatei Torah, judge in the proper way, a judge who judges in the proper way becomes a shutaf with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Maaseh Bereshit. It can be a sam chayim. It's coming to emphasize to us, it should be a sam chayim, it should be an elixir of life, not chas v'shalom, to be an elixir of death. So that is the word, that is tasim, that is the how Rashi understands, how Rabbeinu B'chaye understands. The first three words, the first two words of the pasuk as well. It says Eile HaMishpatim. So we learn Eile HaMishpatim asher tasim lifneihem. So we learn a number of halachot from this pasuk that it means, aside from the ideas that we've just said, what does it mean you're placed before them? Asher tasim lifneihem. Who are you placing it in front of? So the Gemara has a few drashot on this. It says asher tasim lifneihem. You'll place it before them. You know, it's talking about the ones who will judge it, talking about the judges. So it says asher tasim lifneihem v'lo lifnei hedyotot. That's one limud which the Gemara has. That you need to go. Ideally, you have a case. You need to come before Beit Din. You need a Beit Din of mumchim. You need a Beit Din of dayanim mumchim. That is preferable. Not to go in front of hedyotot. But the other drasha, which the Gemara brings in Gittin, which Rashi mentions over here, and it's quite famous. Shaz asher tasim lifneihem v'lo lifnei akum. Right? That one has to go. One has a din. One has a case, a conflict. The one spoke about yesterday. All these mishpatim that we have. All these interpersonal laws and mandatory laws and conflicts, etc. You want to bring a person to court. You go to court. Which court do you go to? You go to Beit Din. You don't go to secular court. You don't go to a non-Jewish court, and that is learned out from this pasuk. Chazal mention it. It's interesting. According to many mafarshim, it would be an isur d'oraita. It's not. Most of the monei mitzvot do not list it as one of the negative prohibitions, but there are different reasons why. What's counted and what is included in the 613, but many the Tashbetz write and others write that it would be an isur d'oraita to go to a secular court, to go to a non-Jewish court. What is the problem of going to a non-Jewish court, and why is it so severe? In fact, just to say how severe it is, the Mishnah Brura, for example, brings this. The Mishnah Brura, as you know, is a commentary on Orach Chaim. It's not a commentary on Choshen Mishpat. So where does the Mishnah Brura talk about going to court? He talks about it in the laws of a Shlech Tzibur. A Shlech Tzibur, the person who goes and davens from the Amud on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, there are all sorts of conditions and all sorts of limitations in terms of who is the ideal Chazan, who is fit to be the Shlech Tzibur, representing the Tzibur. It can't just be anybody. So he says, if a person has done certain Averot, person transgresses certain things willfully, he shouldn't be the Shlech Tzibur. Says Mishnah Berurah. A person who goes to secular court, a person who goes to Erkot, should not be a chazan, should not be the shliach tzibur. So the poskim take it very, very, very seriously, and two primary lines of thought given as to why it's so serious. So Rashi over here tells us the following. Rashi says, lifneihem velo lifnei akum, in front of you, in front of your judges, not the non-Jewish, not the idolaters. He says, "Afilu yadata bahen bedin echad shehem danin oto kedinei Israel." Even if there's a certain case and there's a certain law, and you know that the way they judge it in their system of laws will actually be the same as the way we judge it. Nonetheless, it's still forbidden. Somebody who brings a fellow Israel into these non-Jewish courts, you're causing a chilul Hashem, and you are giving honor, right? You're giving honor to idolatry. You're giving honor to their systems, which one cannot do. And he says at the end, he says all of this is ilui yiratam, that it elevates their belief and it elevates their system. So it causes a chilul Hashem because you're saying, in a sense, you're saying that this is more important. You're giving honor, you're giving credence not to the Torah's laws, but to laws which are not from the Torah. The Rambam, he writes in the Shulchan Aruch, more or less quotes the Rambam on this. When he brings it in Choshen Mishpat, goes in a slightly different direction, but similar, slightly different nuance. The Rambam says that somebody who transgresses this isur of going into a kaot, he says he has herim yado keneged Torat Moshe. You've raised your hand against the Torah. You're attacking the Torah, so to speak. So Rashi focuses maybe on the fact that you are elevating the laws of the idolaters of Avodah Zarah versus the Torah. The Rambam focuses on the fact that you are not showing enough importance to the Torah, which would be the laws. You might say that there's enough coming in between them, in that Rashi is talking about Avodah Zarah specifically, whereas the Rambam is not. But nonetheless, all the poskim say that this would apply whether it's a court which is idolatrous or not. But the fact is that it's just judging according to the not according to the laws of the Torah. The Rabbeinu Bachaya, I mentioned before over here, has a very, very extreme explanation of this. And he says the following. He says, I'll tell you how severe it is, this idea of erkaot, of going to non-Jewish courts. He says, think about murder. He says, murder is something which is terrible. We know murder is a very, very severe sin. He says, you see that even somebody who kills a person, not only have they killed them, but they've cut off their offspring forever. And just like Adam HaRishon was created as one person and everybody came from him, you kill one person, the Mishnah Sanhedrin tells us, destroyed one life, you've destroyed an entire world. And so too, if you save one person, you've saved an entire world, people that will come from them as well. He says murder, nonetheless, a person does tshuva, a person can do tshuva, and his tshuva can be accepted. And then he says, then you have gezel, which is theft. He says, if a person does not give back, we spoke about it this morning in the Gemara Shiur, so he says, you don't give back that which you stole. It doesn't matter how much tshuva you do, it's not going to work. You have to return the gzela, otherwise you can't do tshuva. Okay, that's number one. He says, Chilul Hashem. So if a person has performed something which is Chilul Hashem, the Mishnah Gemara in Yoma tells us that there are certain things you can do tshuva is accepted immediately. Certain things you do tshuva, it's going to be suspended, it's not enough. You need mitah, and you need Yom Kippurim, and you need suffering. It says Chilul Hashem is something which is almost impossible to do tshuva for as well. So he says, a person goes to a non-Jewish court. This is the Rabbeinu Bachaya. Again, not everybody expresses it in such stark terms. To understand, he says on the one hand, you've called Chilul Hashem, as Rashi explains. He says you also there is an element. Poskim point out could be an element of gezer. Why? Because if Reuven takes Shimon to Beit Din, right, and Beit Din says, okay, Shimon owes Reuven X amount of money. It's fine. Reuven takes Shimon to secular court, and secular court says, no, we say differently. We're going to give you this amount of money. That's not according to the Torah standards. That's not according to what he would have been awarded. He is not rightfully. He should not rightfully have been given that money, and therefore there is an element of theft. Rabbi Akiva Eiger writes in one place. He says a person takes money that he won in a secular court, and he uses that to be mekadesh a woman, not mekudeshet, because that's not actually his. And that was gezer. Okay, I'll say right now, there are lots of exceptions to this rule as well. There are, there's an article by Dayan that I was reading before this afternoon who brings at least 10 different exceptions. So, there are cases and there are places where it is allowed, but the default position is that if somebody has a monetary claim, one against another, for the reasons that we've said, for the fact that it's, so as not to create a Chilul Hashem, so as not to give over the impression that the Torah's laws are not as important, so as not to create the impression that there are other systems which are more important to us. One should go to Beit Din and one should not go to a non-Jewish court, to a secular court. If some of the exceptions are whereby a person is not going to go, sometimes the Beit Din can give permission for people to go to secular court. You give a person an invitation to come to Beit Din, the person refuses to come. Whether you have to say once or 3 times, these are different nuances. Obviously, in a 15-minute shiur between Mincha and Maariv, we're not going to cover all the intricacies of HaMishpatim. But there are such circumstances where the person is invited and they aren't going to come to Beit Din and they refuse to listen to Beit Din. So there you might have permission to take the person to another court. Or if a person gives you, if you are summoned to go to the court, that might be another case. Another exception which the poskim write about is criminal law. Different cases of criminal law. Here we're talking about mishpatim, as we said, between 2 different people, 2 parties, where you have a monetary dispute, one against the other. These are cases which are not necessarily covered by this, and then that may be allowed as well. But that is the general principle, and that is the general idea behind Ele Mishpatim, Asher Tasim Lifneihem, right? Lifneihem v'lo lifnei. About Israeli secular court, so I'm not going to get into that. We're out of time. Rabbi Kenigsberg ben Akasha אומר, "Tzakar shpachul lezakot et Yisrael lefnei shech ba'alem Torah mitzvot, shneimar Adonai chavetz man tzidko, yagdir Torah v'yadin."